Did the Gnostics really believe in a higher God and an evil lower God? And why would this matter? This is number 5 in our series on Gnosticism for today. And, somewhere in the Bible, Jesus is talking to somebody and referring to the punitive God, which the Gnostics would call the lower God. Jesus says something like, "Your God isn't the same as my God." And he's making a distinction between what's been called the God of the New Testament, the loving God of the New Testament, and the more punitive, punishing kind of God. So we would be kind of literal-minded if we took that to mean that Jesus was formulating a doctrine of two gods. That's kind of what happens to religion when you get really literal-minded about it. A wisdom teacher says something that's a figure of speech, and people think it means actually what it literally means. So there probably were some Gnostics who thought of two gods, but I'm going to entertain the possibility here that something else was meant, something more psychological, actually, as we would now say it, which is that a lot of people who are raised in patriarchal religions are walking around with a very punitive God image inside of their skull. A God who is basically a narcissistic bully. Love me forever, and if you don't, you're going to drink scalding water in hell. This was the God that many Gnostic texts criticize as a lower God. So when they say that God created the world, they mean the world that we actually live in when we believe in such a God. So I brought with me a Gnostic text I wanted to read you a little bit from, the revelation of Adam, and this is from the very beginning of it, and this is Adam speaking to his son Seth. So for a certain brand of Gnostics called Sethians, Seth is the first Gnostic, and he's a human copy of a pattern that exists in heaven, in the pleroma, the fullness, the wholeness. So Adam is telling Seth, his son, what it was like to be in the Garden of Eden. And Adam says, after God created me out of earth, and he's talking about the lower God, the bully God, who can only create material bodies and soul, but not spirit. After God created me out of earth, along with your mother Eve, I went with her in a glory that she had beheld in the eternal realm that we had come from. So, and then he says that she instructed me in the gnosis of the eternal God. So in many Gnostic stories, Eve is the one who's connected with the divine. And the idea that she's somehow the bad one or the evil one is an archontic distortion. It's the lie that the lower God tells, the lower God and his archon minions. And then there's this, it seems to be a tone of longing here when Adam says, we resemble the great eternal angels, for we were wiser than the God who had created us, and the powers with him whom we did not know. So the first thing that this lower God does, or this internalized oppressor, if we want to interpret it that way, is divides Adam and Eve. So there's the thought, both in Gnosticism and other esoteric traditions, that Adam and Eve existed in one androgynous body at first, and that God divided them. And so hence the Gnostics saying that the separation of the sexes was the beginning of death. So that's the first thing. And then this God who's jealous of Adam and Eve's gnosis throws them out of the garden. So Adam continues, we came to recognize the God who had created us, for his powers were not foreign to us. We served him in fear and subservience, and after that, we grew dim in our minds. Which is a Gnostic way of saying that if you've got this internalized bully running around that religion has put into your psyche, then it diminishes your powers, especially your power of consciousness. So a lot of the emphasis in Gnosticism, to put it in contemporary terms, is how do we get past and undo this internal oppression, this internal colonization? And the first step is to recognize that it exists.